Hey, everybody, welcome. Welcome to this edition of the ActionCAST. I tell you, today is going to be incredible because the first thing I said when we talked about this was, are we really going to go there? That's right. Today, we are diving into having a successful business and a successful marriage, all the ups and downs. It's going to get real. And if y'all know anything about us, it gets real. So, we're going to talk about how you actually navigate a marriage, how you navigate a business, and how you navigate a business marriage partnership so that you can be successful and not lose either one. That's today on the ActionCast. Oh my gosh. So this is incredible. I am so excited about this particular episode because we're talking about marriage, we're talking about business, and how you can be successful without losing either one. And I tell you, the person to my, what is it, right? I guess it's right, maybe left. I don't know. Uh, but the person sitting next to me is a pretty incredible business partner and an even more incredible marriage partner. My better three quarters, right? So there's no half to it, right? But Miss Jessica and I are, we're going to get real today and we're going to talk about business and marriage and how to be successful.
Yeah, I'm excited about today. And I will tell you that, one of the keys to a successful marriage and a successful business is communication. Knowing when to communicate, how to communicate, and when's the right time to communicate. For example, today's Action Cash, which if you're watching right now in this moment, you're watching live. Clint told me about 30 minutes ago, he said, hey, you're going to be joining me on today's Action Cast. And I was like, okay, wait. Let me go put on makeup. Let me brush my hair. And then as I was doing it, like 15 minutes later, so 15 minutes ago, I said, what are we talking about? And I thought, man, we're probably going to talk about like how to be really successful at an expo and then walking into the holidays and all the events that you're going to be doing. And we're going to be doing those in the future. Don't worry. But he was like, no, we're going to be talking about a successful marriage and business together. So all of this is unscripted, but if you know me and Clint, you know we're real, you know we're transparent. We share the wins, the successes, but we also share the challenges and the struggles and just how we got to this point. And no one has a successful business or a successful marriage without the ups and the downs and the working through a lot of things. So I'm sure we'll get into some of that today as well.
And I tell you, that's called keeping a marriage spicy, right? It's the unexpected, right? That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. You're supposed to be like, hey, surprise, right? We might not get into this part of it, but early in our marriage, I learned Jessica doesn't like surprises. I'm not going to say anything about it other than someone offered to take me home because they thought I might be in danger. But so keeping successful in marriage and being successful in business, communication is huge. And I want to thank you for jumping on.
And I think you get it. You like told me at the perfect time, because now we're not going to overthink it. We're going to be really real with what we're sharing here today. So I'm really excited about this one because anybody out there who works with your life partner and they're also your business partner, I think that you're going to be able to relate to a lot of the things that we're saying. For those of you that wish you had the opportunity to work with your life partner in your business, this may be very insightful for you. But
you might want to, you might not want to after this. It's 50-50 right now.
Yeah. So, and I want to just kind of jump in. We are known for being the power couple of home care. I don't know who gave us that title, but it was long before we had home care ops or the home care owners community. We were actually speaking at conferences as home care owners. And we were kind of known as the dynamic marketers in our space as home care owners. We loved marketing. We loved community outreach. And we had an activity program that got adopted by the YMCA and the Alzheimer's Association. And so marketing and community outreach is something that we were known for. And we were speaking at a conference, and I think it might have been Decision Health. And someone was like, the power couple of home care. And then we got a surprise package in the mail that said the power couple of home care. And they only sent one. They sent one t-shirt, not two. So I got to wear it.
Yeah, so she gets to wear it. I don't one, we never knew who the shirt come from. Like still to this day. If you were watching this, let me know so we can thank you.
It was an awesome
we got one shirt.
Yeah, it was an awesome purple shirt that said the power couple of home care. But from that event, wherever it was, we kind of got deemed the power couple of home care. But I want to take just a second and shout out to all of the power couples of home care. They're way more than just me and Clint. And so if you are a power couple of home care, I want you to put in the comments, power couple. Go ahead, claim your spot right here alongside us, power couples of home care. So really right now, whether this is live or replay, I want you to put power couple in the comments if you work alongside your life partner in your business as well.
I tell you, being married and it is incredible. Being married and being in business, for all those that know that, it's a totally different ball game. And Jess, you and I this year have been married 15 years, right? So we've been married 15 years. We are officially no longer allowed in the young married couples group. We can be mentors, right? But we're not young married couple. We're 15 years. And we haven't always been in this place that you and I are in. And I'm happy to say that you and I are in a tremendous place, I feel, in our marriage. And we've grown a lot, especially over the past couple of years. And for the early stages of our marriage, you were building your career. You were working, and then you were working with the kids, and then I was working in the corporate world and all of that. And I mean, we had our time where we were ships in the night, right? We would meet in a parking lot. I would take the kids and you would go to work, or I would pick up the kids and go home, right?
Yeah. And I do think that's a lot of people don't realize that. They think we've been working together for years and years and years, but really the first 9 to 10 years of our marriage, you were working on your track and I was working on my track. I also got to spend a little bit of a years at home with the kids when they were really, really young, and just did very minimal in the business. And it wasn't really until about 6 or 7 years ago at this point that we began working together. And I will tell you, I never foresee that. You had always said, I would love to have a family business. I, on the other hand, was like, no. Business is my escape. Like business is my thing. And family and life is over here. But I am so grateful that we did, because I will tell you, I learned to love you more. I began to see you and respect you in a different light. And I think us working together and building a business has actually helped us to build a way more fulfilling life. So I want to say thank you to that. And thank you for stepping out and being like, hey, I think it's time for me to join you in the home care business. And that was
let's talk about that for a second, because y'all are going to see a pattern, right? So I was like, hey, 30 minutes from now, we're doing live. So Jess come in and she was talking about in the business, she had started her, what she calls Nobility 2.0, right? And she come in and said, you know what? I really need to get somebody for operations. I need somebody to help me in the office. I need somebody to do, with the team and all this. And I was like, funny story. That's what I do. I'm an operational methodologist. You might not realize this. And so I was all excited about it, right? And she was like, oh, that's great. We'll pray about it. And if anybody is from the South, we'll pray about it means, a big old heck no. What she didn't realize, and I always say this, God and I were pretty tight. We'd already talked. So 24 hours later, I come back and say, guess what? I'm not renewing my contract with the hospitality concept that I'm with. 30, 60 days from now, we're a family business.
Yeah, I was shook. Like, I was shook, man. And I know that isn't proper grammar, but yeah, absolutely. Definitely not the response that I expected. And I will tell you, for the first 6 months, I had him like in the basement of documents
Oh my God.
because he was so good at, like, he's amazing at creating documents and organizing the paperwork and creating the processes. Like, we literally would not have become known for streamlining operations had he not come into my business. And the first thing he said, like the very first week, is, I don't know what you're running here, but it's not a business. Like, he said, where's your streamlined processes? Where is the upsells? Where is the, would you like fries with that? Like, how many, like, where is the revenue coming from? And so he really helped me in the first 6 months just truly create a streamlined business.
I love how you frame that. He helped me. That was nice. That was
Well,
really
I
nice.
will say you did it. You come in and you did it around me. Like, you were changing things around me while I was still just focused in on doing the growth. And at the time I was still doing care assessments. I was still very active in the field and very active with communicating with caregivers. And you were on the backside just cranking out, here's the process for that. Here's a document for that. Here's a more efficient way to do what you're already doing. And it worked out. It worked out so well. There was a few things.
So over time, and I think this is a really good point to mention here, because we're talking about marriage and business success. How you can have both of those worlds. And really, the first point I want to talk about for the power couples that are out there is, number one for me was recognizing the bull in a china shop, right? Approach. So there's all this posturing, and when you've been married, for people who have not been married, you might not know this, and if you're fixing to get married, get ready for this. There's a posturing moment that happens in a marriage, right? Early in the marriage, and regardless of whoever you are. My dad always used to call it the rooster syndrome, right? So you come in and you start flaunting about and like, this is what I do great, this is what I do good, and it's men, women, right? It doesn't matter. Well, you think you're through that, because I mean, we started into business together at like 9 or 10 years into marriage, and you think you're kind of through some of that, but then you get into business together, and there's almost this new marriage that happens, that you really have to consider, okay, how am I doing? Because all of a sudden, all the insecurities come back. Oh my God, if I make a wrong decision here, from my perspective, I'm not saying from yours, but from my perspective, if I make a wrong decision here, is she going to doubt me in the future? Is this going to carry over to our life? How do you separate this, right? And that was one of the big things I had to start realizing, is when I would enter that posturing mode. And when I would have to recognize when you were taking, and then I had to step back and say, okay, wait a minute. This is something that she feels really strong about. Why? Doesn't mean you were right, but I needed to know why you felt so strongly about that, and that you needed to do it that way, because the outcome we both wanted was success. But I had to realize when success was tomorrow, not a successful business, right?
Yeah. And I think that goes to a lot of times we talk about vision and mission with our team, right? The team define their mission within your vision. I think that really in our business, it started with each other. We both had an aligned vision of, this is what success looks like for us. This is what we want to see. This is the vision that we foresee for our family and for our life and for our business, and to be able to achieve that through our business. But each individually, we had different missions personally within ourselves, and we each had to find our own mission within our aligned vision, and then we had to fully understand and know, and be able to help support each other in those individual missions that we were on. And that definitely took communication. It also took intentional integration. Whenever you work and you live life together, all under the same roof in the same family, work-life balance, really, you have to throw that out the window and have intentional work-life integration, to really sit down and say, hey, this is dedicated time, and this is the dedicated outcomes that we're working toward, both in life and in marriage. And then also we have our kids, and our kids they now have a private teacher, but technically they are homeschooled. And even with them, we had to consider, how can we integrate them into our work life, into our home life? How can we create that alignment and that synergy to where it isn't constantly feeling like that we're sacrificing and we're compromising everything? Because the thing about compromising is, whenever you begin to compromise your big reason why, you begin to compromise those big outcomes that you're going for. You begin to compromise the relationship with your kids. You begin to compromise your relationship with your spouse. When you start compromising, you can't be surprised when your business is compromised, or when your finances are compromised. So it really is about both of us sitting down and getting clear of, what does success look like for us, both financially, relationship wise, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, like sitting down and having that conversation. And you don't have that conversation once.
No.
You have to revisit that conversation over and over and over again.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to grow.
Yeah.
And all of us feel like at certain points that we are correct. And I'm sure you and I can both point back through our marriage and find times where we were like, knew it. I was right in that,
I
right?
have so many of those moments, Clint.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I'm like,
Yeah, I know. It's just so many. You can't keep count, right? But the reality is, when those moments happen, and recently someone told us, we were actually at a conference, and it was actually a marriage couples conference, and we were speaking, and one of the people were talking there, and she began to talk about this concept of the dance, and you and I have called it this for a long time, but it goes to this communication, and every couple knows it. There's a nod of the head, there's a roll of the eye, there's a when you're in the middle of a conversation and something happens, and then you're like, all right, we're about to get into it. This is where it's going, right? When that happens. And you and I have referred to this as the dance. That communication piece becomes so important. And I tell you, one of the biggest times for me was when we started really diving into the home care ops and transitioning from nobility, working, in the operations of nobility, and building that business to be a team managed agency. And now we were building home care ops. Well, all of a sudden, we found ourselves in a new business again, right?
yeah,
And you and I, let's kind of talk about this transition, because a lot of these power couples out there, there's moments in your business when your business becomes something new.
yeah.
It starts as one thing, and then you grow into a bigger, better version, or you start a new concept, whatever it is. Let's talk about transitions for just a minute, because I think transitions are some of the most powerful things in a relationship, but they
Yeah.
can also be one of the most easily overlooked. So
Yeah.
think about some transitions for you. What are some that were kind of impactful and you were like, these were really helpful?
Yeah, and I think whenever we talk about transitions, not only are they sometimes they overlooked, they're also the wedge that begins to happen, that if you don't really address it and you don't acknowledge it and you don't work through it, it can really fracture the marriage, and it can also, sink a business. And I think for us, the biggest transition that I've had is coming from being a successful home care owner, working in the care field, delivering the care, and feeling really great at it. I was great at being a professional care provider. I was great with working with the clients. I was great at delivering care, building team culture, building that team morale. I was really great at all the things that encompassed home care. And then when transitioning over into home care ops, which is it's a lot of online consulting, it's a lot of Zoom. I don't even know if I used Zoom before 2020 more than 5 times. It's always being on camera. One of the things you can't hardly find anything of me is pictures or video prior to the year of 2020 when we started home care ops. There was so many things that I was uncomfortable, that was unknown, and I wasn't great at. And thinking about in the transitions, you're going to have transitional periods to where as a couple, there's going to be things that you're leading. And then you have to know when it's time to step back and let the other one lead, and let the other one lean into their strengths and support the other one while they're leaning into their strengths. Otherwise, like with me and Clint, we kind of had this tug of war of who's leading and who's best fit to lead. And I was used to kind of leading the charge in the home care agency, but then that began to flip in home care ops, because obviously Clint is an AI genius, a tech genius. He's systems and he's processes, and he's amazing in all of that. And that I had to know, and I had to be willing to take a step back and say, how can I support you in this? What do I need to learn in this? How do I get comfortable being uncomfortable on this path and on this journey with you? So I think, speaking of transitions, it's really evaluating where are you together? What are your strengths? What are the things that you need to support the other one in? And something that we picked up from our mentor, Barry Baumgardner, was know your 51%. Know when it's your partner's 51% or it's your 51%. And if it's their 51%, then don't constantly question them. And I am a pro of questions. Why are we doing this? What if we did it this way? Wouldn't there be a better way? Or what if we were to do it like that? Why are you doing it like that? Is that constantly? I can turn one question into 500 questions in less than 5 minutes. So, but truly learning whenever he says my 51%, to know I'm going to trust the process and the outcome, because that is his 51%. And Clinton, you come up with a statement that kind of brought a lot of comfort for me, and sometimes it kind of was a little frustrating, but it talked about believing the vision and trust the process. Believe the vision and trust the process. I was the entrepreneur, a visionary entrepreneur, the vision, but I also had to trust the process. And Clint is so great at the process. He had to believe the vision, and to create that successful process, but I also had to believe the vision and to trust that process for it truly to be successful.
Yeah, and it's important, and we talk about this in Action Leaders a lot. As a matter of fact, we just had a milestone, what we call our mastery days on this. And we talk about strategic vision and what vision truly is, and recognizing that vision isn't the pie in the sky. It is setting a boundary. It is saying, this is the area we're focused on, and we're going to dive into that. I know for, kind of talking about actionable things that people can do in marriages. Number one, if you are currently in a marriage and you are in a business together, the first thing you need to do is have a clear conversation that is, hey, we need to talk about the marriage and the business. Where does that connect? And it's not about separation of marriage and business. I don't believe in that. You mentioned this earlier, and you and I both believe we don't believe in balance. We believe in integration. you need to find out how the marriage integrates. And date nights may be great for you. They may, just figure it out. For Jess and I, date nights are like, it's not the way we best communicate. Like we get in there and we're like, okay, you're not supposed to talk about business and we're not supposed to talk about the kids. And then we just sit there awkwardly and are like, Jesus, there's nothing to talk about.
Or we end up we start talking about a totally new business. Like,
Yeah.
since we can't talk about our business, we'll create another business concept that we can talk about.
Yeah. The funnest times is when we totally like ravage the business we're in. We're like, oh, they should totally be doing this. They should look at this, man. Can you believe they have that marketing campaign?
And
like,
if they would just tweak this, their net profit would be so much better.
Right? When we leave with like a list of things to email the owner.
I would love to know in the comments, like, who else goes into businesses and you're constantly like seeing things that they could tweak or do better, or things that you would do differently. Like, let me know in the comments. And I know Amy, and power couple right there. I'm sure she can relate to that.
Yeah. So with, kind of actionable things that you can do, one of the things that is so important with that communication is setting boundaries. Not just boundaries of, hey, this is my 51%, this is this, but truly having time throughout the week where, you love that quiet time by yourself. You love that, having that, you love doing that, but finding the thing that renews you personally and recognizing the value of you in a marriage. And I'm not speaking about Jessica here, I'm speaking about me too. I had to recognize the value of myself in the marriage. And it wasn't all, do everything to make her life better, do all this. That's all within this. But there's a moment where I had to say, wait a minute, what fills my cup? And there's this misconception, and you and I actually did this for a long time. We thought this, that when you're married, you find that my strengths offset your weaknesses and your strengths offset my weakest areas, and that's where we can build. But that creates competition. That creates a tremendous competition, because the moment that you feel like someone else is better in something than you, I know for us, right, that meant, I got to get better than them, and you start trying to one up. Or there is this, well, she knows I'm not as good in that, so there's this competition that builds. And what we have understood over our marriage is it's not about our strengths offsetting the weaknesses. It is about our strengths supporting each other in the areas of improvement, of growth, of development. That's really what it is. And how about for you, Jess, over our marriage here? Because that was a big thing for me when I realized, wait a minute, my strengths need to support her, not overtake it.
Yeah. Well, talking about strengths and supporting each other's strengths and supporting each other's weaknesses, right? You need to support each other's strengths. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you don't support the other one's strength, then that competition does happen. Also supporting their weaknesses, but also realizing that a lot of times we think marriage is always about the giving and the taking from each other and of each other. But the one thing that I've learned, and I've learned in the more recent years, is that one of the biggest things that you have to work on and invest in and prioritize in a marriage, I know this sounds crazy, but it's actually yourself. You've got to have that self-care, and you have to create space for yourself, but also ensure that your spouse is creating space for self-care. Now, that doesn't mean that you're being selfish, but if you are not practicing self-care, if you're not doing the things that make you look good and feel good for yourself, you're not going to want to look good and feel good for your spouse, right? If you are not taking time to provide that mental clarity and get that mental clarity for yourself, then when you are trying to give attention or give or show love to a spouse, it's not going to be in a healthy mind frame. And I know for me, I had to take a step away and say, I need to focus on self-care. And when I did that, our marriage began to improve. And I began to ensure that Clint was also creating his own space for his own self-care. And I think that in business, we feel stretched and pulled in so many directions. And self-care is important to practice in business. And it's also important to practice in your marriage and support each other in making sure that self-care is happening. Because whenever you're taking care of yourself, that is going to increase the amount of connection that you're having in your marriage if each other is supporting each other on that journey of self-care and self-awareness and self-fulfillment.
So let's talk about that self-care for just a minute, because I think it's such a true statement that in order to care for others, you have to first care for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in business, a lot of times, one of the biggest arguments, well, we'll call them marital discussions. Let's call them marital discussions. But at some point in time, a business discussion becomes a marital discussion.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of times that involves team. And this is something that in business, we can talk about how you handle it at home, how you handle it, in public. And, as long as everybody sees you smiling together, you're doing great. But the reality is there's a team involved in this, right? So just like you have kids in your own life, for a lot of married couples out there, just because you have that, you also have that in a business concept too. And when you have a business partnership, there's the same dynamic as there is with kids. Sometimes the kids run to mommy and say, "Hey, can I do this?" She says no, so they run to daddy, right? There's that same happens in a business, especially if those lines aren't defined, right? A team might come to you and say, "Hey, I want to do this," and you're like, "Well, no, I'm not really into that." And then they come to me and are like, "Hey, this is really sounding good." And I'm like, "Oh, that's great." And so there's this, this parental, divide, but also there's moments that the team sees the business discussion transition to a marital discussion. Um, for me, that was one of the hardest things to accept, because I never want the team to feel like I have put them in a place of awkwardness or uneasiness, right? Not my jokes. I tell awkward jokes all the time, but just in life, I never want the team to feel that. But there comes a point when marriage overtakes business, and all of a sudden you start talking. You and I did this one time, and Kevin has been with us since the beginning, and Kevin always, from the start, Kevin said, "I will absolutely be a business partner. I will not be a marriage coach."
Yeah, that's
Right?
what he'll say. He'll say, "I'll be a referee at times, but never a marriage counselor."
Yeah. And I want to thank Kevin, because Kevin has been tremendous in
Yeah.
this and navigating this, and his wisdom he shared with us has been tremendous. So really, thank you, Kevin. It's been amazing. But let's talk about this. How have you experienced success with dealing with marriage and a team?
Yeah, I think first off, when talking with a team, is from the get-go establishing those clear what you call PRIs, primary responsible individuals, right? Like this is the areas of the business that Clint is responsible for. This is the areas of the business I'm responsible for. Clearly establishing those. Who is the direct report for your team members is very important as well. And then when we're having our team meetings and we're having our strategy sessions and we're having our brainstorming sessions, knowing what is a professional response and a professional advocacy moment. And I'm already I'm already very transparent. I'm very passionate with the public in general. And I'm sure many of you have already seen that we're very real and transparent people. But knowing when to table a conversation, and a lot of times we'll say that, let's table this and we'll discuss this separately. And what we're really saying is this is branching into a marital discussion, not a professional business discussion. So we'll have this, we'll side note this. And just one, being able to openly say that, and for me and Clint both to have that unspoken language, and also knowing what it means by saying, let's table this for a later discussion. What he's really saying is, we're tabling this and we're going to talk about this with outside the team, Jessica, because your passion is going into personal, not professional here. So being able to really have that conversation, and something that we say is the 3 pillars of success in business is transparent communication, clear and defined expectations, and that supportive accountability or clear next steps. And we have to practice that in marriage as well, is to have that transparent communication, have the clear and defined expectations, and then knowing what is supportive, knowing what are the clear next steps, and knowing when to openly have that discussion with our team, and then knowing when to pull back and say, before we go into the meeting, let's set this expectations for ourselves. And whenever we're in the meeting, knowing when to table things, to have those conversations for ourselves.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's kind of pull this all together. We're talking about marriage, success in business. The old adage, make sure to what is it? Make sure to look as good for your spouse as you would for somebody you're trying to impress, which I always found was funny. But, all those things are true. I mean, I didn't just wear this yellow shirt today because it was,
we're not even talking about the shirts, guys. So when we got married 15 years ago, all of his Bahama Mama shirts went missing.
They're not Bahama Mama shirts.
Whatever. What do y'all call them? Put in the comments. What do y'all call these Bahama Mama shirts? Anyway, they all went missing. And I don't remember hiding them or throwing them away, but I could have, because I despised them. I hated them. Our 10th year of marriage, he ordered 2. And I was like, as long as you wear a vest over them, that's okay. So if y'all want to know where the vests come from, people talk about Clint always having a vest, it's to cover and maintain a little bit of balance with all these crazy shirts. But this year, 15 years of marriage, and I had an influencer reach out that makes these Bahama Mama shirts, and she was like, if you'll just showcase these shirts and Clint in them. I got these shirts at $7.99 a piece, 90% off of these shirts. And you know what my love language is? A discount, a good coupon code, whatever it is.
It really is.
So my love for Clint and my love of getting a 90% off really great deal led me to ordering 20 of these Mama shirts.
You will be seeing them as we get closer to Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, any time of year, because every day comes only once a year.
And I will tell you, I loved you at first, but not enough for you to wear those Bahama Mama shirts, because they did go missing for 10 years. And then I loved you in spite of them, around the 10-year stage. But now I actually love you because of them, because it actually has been a statement. Going out and marketing and networking, people instantly know Clint Nobles. I went from being people telling Clint, oh, you're married to Jessica, to now I'm like, oh yeah, Clint, the guy wearing those shirts, you're his wife. Now I'm the wife of the guy who always wears those awesome shirts. And whether they would ever wear them or not, they usually call them awesome, and it makes a statement. And I don't know, now I look at you and I'm like, what color is he wearing today? How's he feeling? I can tell by what color he chose. So.
I know. I come out in one the other day and you're like, oh, that looks good on you. And I was like, yes, Stockholm Syndrome for the win.
Yeah. Now, now the vest is even leaving. There's some shirts today, a vest would still be beneficial.
I just felt like it was a day for freeness.
Yeah. Be yourself. I love you for that.
All right. So success in business and marriage really comes down. We went a long way around this here. But it really comes down to communication and knowing when and why you're passionate about something. Okay, I'm super passionate about this. Why is this something I'm willing to stake my flag in the ground and die on this, right? Why is it? And if there's a valid reason to that, understand that, communicate that. But then it also comes down to transparency. that transparent communication, right? Clear and defined expectations. This is what the expectation is for the marriage. This is the expectation for the business. And really being able to have that supportive accountability, that sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it needs to come from outside. And for couples who do not do, like, oh, we'll never do therapy, we'll never do that. I actually love therapy for couples. I think it is insanely good. Make sure to get one that you both agree with, you both like, and all this stuff. But I think it's really important to have a safe space where both people feel like there's a neutral party they can discuss things with. For business, it's important to give your team the authority. This is a hard statement to hear, but it's important to give your team the authority. Someone on your team needs to have this, to where they have the authority to say, hey, is this a business discussion or is it marriage? They don't need to correct you. They don't need to say, hey, stop this, or, any of that. They just need to bring attention. Hey, is this a business discussion or is this marriage? That simple stop. Okay, yeah, let's table this for a minute, right? But it's important to give your team that authority. How about for you, Jess? Parting thoughts. Like, what is the thing that you think for business and marriage success, not losing either? What is the thing that you feel like has grown to be one of their staples for you?
Yeah, I think it would definitely be having an aligned vision. Make sure that your vision is aligned and communicate that. Have very clear missions. Like individually, you may have different missions that are working toward the alignment of that vision. Support each other in each other's mission, understanding the 51. What's his 51%? What is yours? How do you support each other in their strengths? How do you support each other in areas that you're not strong in? And really create space for self-care, and ensure that your partner is also creating that space for self-care and you're supporting each other in that. And knowing when it's your turn, your time to lead, and when it's time to step back and really recover and allow the other one to lead and support them in the lead. I think that's been a few of the keys to us having a successful marriage and having a successful business, and just realizing that successful doesn't mean that you've got it all together and everything is going to be perfect. Success isn't an end of life achievement. It is a daily choice. What does being successful look like for you every single day? And me and Clint both have decided that our goal isn't to have reached the end of our life and to have been successful. It is to wake up every day and choose to be successful in our actions and our decisions, individually and with each other. So for me, the question I would challenge you with is, what does being successful look like for you today? And tomorrow, wake up and ask yourself the same question, and look at your partner and ask them, what does being successful look like for us together today? What can we do today to be successful today? And if you're doing that every day, the key to success is consistency. Consistently asking yourself and your partner every single day, what does being successful look like for me, for us, and for our business together?
And we call it living in a state of being successful. You're in a state of being successful. For me, one of the biggest things is recognizing that we both want to achieve the same outcome: a better life, support each other, better time with our kids, like all of those things. So the path to get there is going to be winding. And it's not about my way is righter or your way is righter. It is about how can we get there together. So when those moments of marital discussion happen, the question isn't which way is right. It's what way gets us where we need to go together, right?
Yeah.
And as long as the solution always is together, rarely will the solution be apart, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. You're amazing. Beautiful as always. being successful in business or marriage. I want to hear from you. What in the comments, what have you found to be the reason you're successful in business and marriage? Let me know and help some of us out here who maybe need that wisdom, right? We want to learn from you too. So go out there, be successful in your life, be successful in your business, but most of all, take action together. We'll see you next week on the ActionCast, everybody.